I'm just going to throw this over. One of the Russians is going to take this here in the studio. Thank you. Yeah. Are you a Ukrainian? Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah, that's fine. You take it. Okay. Thank you. All right. So we got flow of a couple kinds here. All right. So first off, let's talk the flow where we're going to be going for arms and ammunition and fuel. And that is eventually our direction where we're going in the Middle East, the Straits of Hormel, and all that stuff. All right. So we're going to be showing you a little something as a preview right now. Nothing's going to stop the flow of the show. That's right. Nothing's going to stop the fro. There. Of course, great stuff from Daniel Davis and the Deep Dive folks. As we see, of course, the triple D or the quadruple D doing us a little something good there, deriving some headlines from Politico. No quick rebound for the Strait of Hormel. That disruption, oil execs tell the Dallas Fed. Yeah, at least they didn't have to travel far to talk to the Dallas Fed. Yes, indeed. Now, they've got this, of course, from the story that they highlighted and did in reverse images with white lettering. U.S. oil and gas executives expect traffic through the Strait of Hormel to be constrained through August with little change in U.S. crude output to offset the drop in Middle East oil, according to a survey conducted by the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. Most of the executives in the survey released Thursday, also, how many fingers, police squad, also said that they expect shipping costs for oil from the Persian Gulf to rise even after the U.S. war with Iran ends due to higher insurance rates and tolls. Yeah, no kidding. Great stuff from those guys. And also, nothing's going to stop the flow when it comes to, that's right, the lack of United States weaponry and their demand for more of your money. It will flow from your veins. You got it. Since the Iran war began in late February, and this is just a reiteration of stuff we've covered over the past 3 nights, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned it right at the start before we hop into Ukraine, because it's all tied together. Since the Iran war began in late February, the United States has burned through around 1,100 of its long-range stealth cruise missiles built for a war with China, close to the total number remaining in the U.S. stockpile. The military has fired off more than 1,000 Tomahawk cruise missiles, roughly 10 times the number it currently buys each year. Did you notice how everybody got all ticked off at the Tomahawk chop? Except like a lot of Indian folks who actually were like, oh, it kind of does respect to the people who were driven out of the area. But they don't mind killer missiles being called Tomahawks. Yeah, okay. I think I'd rather just have, like a sporting event motion named after my hatchet, the Tomahawk, rather than something that's killing innocent kids in Iran. But, that's just me. The Pentagon used more than 1,200 Patriot interceptor missiles in the war at more than $4 million a pop. And as we mentioned last night, more than 1,000 precision strike ATACMS ground-based missiles, leaving inventories worrisomely low. But not for the military-industrial complex, which will get the new contracts. They're not worried at all, are they, Russians? Niet. No, niet. That's my Espanol. So, all right. Now, we've got that established, obviously. So we're going in that direction. We're heading to that island in the tumultuous seas of tyranny. However, I want to go over to Ukraine because, as I mentioned yesterday, there's been that change in the prime ministership of Hungary, right? Okay. And that means Viktor Orban is out. And so the number of months that gave us a setup that had sort of seen this question, this quandary about what was going to happen with this 90 billion euro loan that the European Union wanted to give to Ukraine, which of course would not be paid back at all. So they had to try to backstop it with something. So they wanted to backstop it with this money they were stealing from the Russians. But the Russians have a court case against that. So the ECB said, maybe we're not yet ready for that, because if we lose the court case, then we're screwed. That's $90 billion we'll have to pay the Russians. Kind of not cool. So they came up with this alternative that essentially said, hey, European Union member states, here's what we'll do. It's a genius thing. Here's what we'll do. You can back it up with your own currency in your own central banks from your own governments, And then we'll give that loan to the Ukrainians, as Victoria Nuland might tell Marco Rubio in the Senate when he was a senator, the Ukrainians. Then what'll happen is, if you're a member of the EU and you don't want to participate, then you can be left out of it. Okay? Now, the other layer to that is the EU member states all got to vote on it, and Hungary not only said, we don't want to participate, but they said, we're vetoing it. So it's been on hold since Viktor Orban got pushed out. So now let's go over to see the latest and up-to-datest from the halls of justice. That's right. Where's our newsreader guy? Hey, newsreader. Is he here, guys? Is the newsreader? I hope the newsreader is here because we need him. I don't know. Did you pay him? What's that? Are you going to give him? They're going to give him an EU loan. That's going to work great. Okay, let's get our newsreader guy. I'm here, Gardner. I love EU. You, boy, it's wonderful. Dateline Ukraine or Dateline Brussels, Belgium. One might think it odd that we open with news regarding Ukraine. But as we reported on Liberty Conspiracy Live last night, hate that show, love that show, I don't know. The new PM of Hungary reversed the Hungarian government's veto of the 90 billion euro loan, in quotes, that's cute, to Ukraine. Sort of like when FDR gave his oath to the Constitution. That was in quotes with his fingers tied behind his back. I remember, like it was yesterday. Yes, that's right. They're going to give that new $90 billion loan to Ukraine, G-Man, while at the same time utilizing its ability not to participate in the loan from Hungary. That's right. So, God, you figure that one out. I'm going back to 1940, where everything is, it's so good. Bye. Hey, there you go, man. He always sounds like he doesn't really want to go back to that FDR era. I don't know why that would be. It was supposed to be great. My high school teachers told me FDR was really awesome. I remember when that teacher was pulling my hair, Mrs. Cross, and she threatened to pour soda over my head because I would argue with her. Hi, Mrs. Cross. I know you're retired now, so you can't hurt any more kids. That's awesome. Okay, so let's get back to it. Here it is. Yeah, so this is the way the situation is, of course, right. So they reversed their veto, but at the same time, Hungary is utilizing its ability to not participate in it through not backing the loan with Hungarian funds. Okay, that should be pretty straight up there. I hope I did an okay job. But the situation sees the Eurozone nations that are participating, now that the Hungarian veto is gone, claiming they can repay with money acquired from interest on Russian so-called frozen assets. But as I said, Russia's government is suing the EU over that. So the question remains, from whence will the EU get the money to offer the loan? And how can Ukraine collateralize that, since Ukraine, of course, is undoubtedly going to lose the war? Nothing's going to stop the flow. The answer appears to be that the individual Euro nations, so this gets us to the military-industrial complex for their side. It's the European industrial complex for the military, that individual Euro nations that are participating will get their central governments or central banks to offer a smaller amount, perhaps 30 billion euros, counting on those moves passing their legislatures because, of course, they will tell their national players that the loans will be used by Ukraine to buy weapons from their arms makers. Those, of course, in the various constituent EU nations, just like we said. It appears to be shaking out like we expected at the end of the year last year, and the shakedown of the people of the Eurozone military industrial complex will continue. So inside the news notes for the genetically superior paid subscribers at the Gardner Goldsmith Substack, here is the Duran with one of the absolute bestest overviews I've seen on the breaking story. Now, just to let you know, there is so much here that we're going to go through the first 6 minutes, but you can go through the first 25 minutes. And seriously, I would not be giving you a bum steer. It's awesome. It's awesome, awesome, awesome. So I'll play the first 6 minutes. Then we're going to go into the Iran stuff. And then we might come back, tie in the United States, Lindsey Graham mindset with the military industrial complex here, and then hop back to the Ukraine stuff and tie in the EU again. But here is the cool guys from the Duran.
All right, Alexander, the 90 billion loan to Ukraine. It's a great loan. It's a great loan, Alexander. You don't have to pay it back, and there's no interest for Ukraine. Anyway, that's been approved. Europe celebrated. The Europeans celebrated along with the special guest of honor, Zelensky, here in Cyprus, in Napa, Alexander. And my sources tell me that they really did celebrate. They really did celebrate the 90 billion gift to Zelensky. The 20th sanctions package has also been passed.
Yes.
Kaja Kallas is already talking about a 21 sanctions package. And today, they are going to be discussing getting Ukraine into the European Union. And they're also talking about the militarization of Europe so that they can go into a war with Russia. At least that's the obvious purpose of militarizing Europe. By the way, Alexander, Finland has removed, or the Finnish government has submitted a proposal to the parliament in order to remove legal barriers for hosting nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
That also happened. And we also have Poland and France. They are engaging in military exercises, preparing to or game planning the nuclear bombing of Russia, of St. Petersburg. So they're having all these military exercises about flying over Russia and bombing St. Petersburg. And we have the UK, which is also game planning some sort of an attack or invasion of Kaliningrad.
Yeah.
All of this is going to happen over the next couple of weeks, all of these military exercises and operations. Lots going on with regards to Russia, a Europe that is absolutely obsessed and focused on going to war with Russia, on escalating with Russia. And now we have the 90 billion to Ukraine.
Let's start with the 90 billion. Money handed over to Zelensky. Lots of unanswered questions about the 90 billion euro loan, by the way, because the original plan, as I very, very well remember from December, was that the European Commission would place bonds in the international financial markets, and that the money for the loan would be raised via those bonds. And well, we always said there's a big question mark over this because it's completely unclear when the bonds are going to be redeemed. Supposedly it's going to be when the Russians pay reparations, but when's that going to happen? Ukraine is never going to pay the bonds. And that did beg the question of whether, in a situation like the one that existed in December, people in the financial markets would buy the bonds. Now, we are now in a completely different situation again. We're in April. We have a massive economic crisis staring at us over the horizon. Budget and financial problems appear to be growing. I would have thought that the eagerness in the markets to buy these bonds, is going to be significantly less than it was in December. In fact, I'd be very surprised that anybody would buy these bonds, which begs the question of whether we are in fact looking at the same loan today as the one that was being discussed in December, because they're now talking about distributing the money to Zelensky very fast. So what I think we're actually going to see is that they're going to take the money straight out of the European budget, and that governments are going to increase their contributions to the European budget over the next few months.
Okay, so we've got that piece of the Lego set, right? Now, why would they be doing that? And this is where the guys from the Duran, Alexander, and the guys, they do a great job, of course, directing attention where it appropriately should be directed to the EU members and their supporters in their various constituent states' belief that they can have a wartime economy and their friends in the military industrial complex in the EU will do well. So whether or not they think the citizens will do well is irrelevant.
In theory, should be authorized by European national parliaments because it's a transfer to Brussels. I think in Germany, they would be able to do that. In some other countries, it would be very, very controversial. So I think one of two things is going to happen. Either the Germans will transfer most of the money, or it will be sent to the European Commission through various backdoor mechanisms, which are probably technically illegal. Just saying. There is another factor at play here as well on the 90 billion euro loan, which absolutely no one is talking about. But in February, the Russian central bank started a case in the European Court of Justice, saying that the decision that was also made in the autumn of last year to change the terms on which the central bank reserves were being frozen, to change them from a situation where the freeze had to be rolled over every 6 months. There had to be a decision every 6 months to roll it over, to one where it was indefinite, that was illegal. And again, I remember at the time that there was a lot of discussion in the media at the time, in Britain and elsewhere, that what the European Union was doing actually was illegal. So on the face of it, the Russians have a very good case because it's all over the media, in which case, again, the prospects for any repayment of this loan out of the Russian central bank reserves evaporates if the case is won. So all sorts of questions about this loan. I've no doubt the Ukrainians will be paid over this money soon. But I suspect that when you look at all of the legal issues that are stacking up, the doubts of the financial markets, the question mark over this case in the European Court of Justice, all of these things, I suspect that what we're going to see is a direct transfer to Zelensky, not of 90 billion euros, but of 30 billion euros. And it's going to come straight out of national budgets, first and foremost, Germany's budget.
Yeah, 60 billion is going to go to weapons contracts.
Exactly. So this is going to just be...
You got it. Weapons contracts. Exactly.
Another part of Merz's rearmament drive, a subsidy to his favored companies in Germany, to Volkswagen, Daimler-Benz, companies of that kind. And Zelensky will actually get 30 billion. And as I said, I suspect it's just going to come out of Germany's budgets. That's what...
Again, and they go into further a little bit more about the military-industrial complex, but they mentioned Merz's military-industrial complex friends. Absolutely right. Now, that then reflects on some of the mindset of people like Lindsey Graham and like others like John McCain's ghost, who were so supported by the military-industrial complex, like the governor of New Hampshire, Kelly Ayotte, who was on the board of BAE Systems and on the board of Fox News. A lot of people in your state, perhaps, or particular people coming out of your state going to Washington, D.C., who are supported by a lot of the money that goes into that feedback loop. And I think that one of the things that seems to be really important for these people, I'll say it in three ways. One is, what's the midterm election going to be like for the United States when we look at the Middle East and Iran? Two, how do the large pocketed people have an effect on those people that might diverge from polls and popularity and things like that, that would continue to generate interest in these politicians to keep walking along this deadly mass slaughter war crime path, right? So then you look at Lockheed Martin, you look at all these things, and the numbers that we showed at the beginning are good for Lockheed Martin. They're good for BAE Systems. They're good for all these companies, right? Why? Because they're going to get more orders. And it's not just that. It's also reflected in the fact that people like Hegseth and Donald Trump and others are not only asking for $1.5 trillion for the defense budget next year, but there's an additional amount of spending that is probably another $200 billion that will be over and above that for sundry different things. So it's more like $1.7 trillion. And so a lot of stockholders and a lot of people who are on the boards of these giant military industrial corporations, just like Merz in Germany, they're insulated from this criticism because their bank accounts are still going to go up and up and up. So the question is, where is there a threshold for some of these people regarding political power and whether or not they'll still hold their seats in political power? Is there a cutoff point where they say, okay, the people are so against this, we can't keep going with this? And then you've got the Israeli lobby and the amount of money they push into it.